After my archenemy went bankrupt, I paid to keep him, touched him, slept with him, humiliated him. He flushed red with rage, but always gave in. Until one day, I overheard him on the phone, "So what if I didn't go bankrupt? Whoever dares talk nonsense in front of her, can wait to die." Chad Gordon had gone bankrupt. The once high and mighty legend of the business world turned overnight into a penniless, debt-ridden loser. All the rivals he had once crushed rushed up to kick him while he was down. "Young Master Gordon, lick my shoe and I'll give you 10,000. Otherwise, just selling booze? You won't be able to pay off what you owe in 10 lifetimes. Chad Gordon only lowered his eyes and stood there, calm and neither servile nor overbearing. Pitiful and fragile. I walked straight over, slapped a wad of cash on the counter for the manager, and took him away. He spoke lightly. "You came to laugh at me too?" I turned my head. "What else?" Chad's face darkened at once. I took out the stack of bills I'd prepared from my bag and smacked it against him. "Follow me. 10,000 a day." His brows furrowed at once. "What did you say?" I knew that meant he was angry. After all, everyone in our circle knew we'd never gotten along. And now I was taking advantage of his fall to humiliate him like this. He had to be furious. I put my hands on my hips. 10,000 a day. I'm keeping you. And don't you play hard to get, you're up to your neck in debt. Right now, besides me, who else can help you? Looking at Chad's fingers trembling with rage from the humiliation, I suddenly felt an inexplicable thrill. I threw another wad of money at him. The bright red bills scattered all over the floor. "This is for you. Pick it up and come with me. Offer expires soon." Chad looked at me without saying a word. In the end, he still couldn't resist the lure of money. He slowly bent his knees, crouched down, and, face burning with shame, picked up the bills one by one from the floor. His voice was so low it sounded waterlogged. "Grace Clark, do you always help people like this?" I slapped my palm against his pec. "A sponsor's private life is none of your business." Chad's face went even darker. Chad couldn't stand me because he despised everyone equally. But I couldn't stand him simply because I couldn't get him. After all, he had a face that looked like it had been rendered by a game engine, and that full, sculpted body of his made you want to swallow it whole. I thought I'd have to spend my whole life secretly hating him like this. Who knew such a perfect opportunity would come? He probably really did owe a lot of money. He was obedient the whole way, terrified I'd return the goods. Even when he'd just gotten out of the shower and I climbed right on top of him, he only turned his head away in anger and refused to look at me. I pinched his chin and forced him to meet my eyes. "Chad, you know what a canary is supposed to do, right?" His eyes were red at the corners from too much emotion. After a long moment, he finally muttered, unwillingly, "Yeah." I pushed him backward. "Then kiss me. From here, to here." The moment he saw where I was pointing, Chad's face flushed red with rage. Even his tightly pressed lips were trembling. "Don't want to?" I narrowed my eyes. I lifted my leg, ready to get off him. "Then I won't keep you. Give the money back." But my calf was instantly caught by a big, burning hand. Chad's voice was hoarse to the point of absurdity. "No, I can." The power of money really was something he couldn't refuse. He sat up and knelt beside me. Face full of humiliation, he bent down and pressed his lips to my collarbone. Feather-like kisses. Drifting down, inch by inch. He cupped my leg with one hand. Even his fingertips were shaking. Wait, he was really good at this. I couldn't help curling my toes, and I grabbed his hair in one hand. Forced to stop, he lifted his eyes, looking up like he was innocent. "What's wrong?" I tried hard to steady my shaking voice. "Jay, just stop there for now." I really couldn't take it, sob. Chad's lips seemed to hook up the tiniest bit. "Okay." Inside, I was like a starving wolf. But in reality, my experience was almost zero. I hadn't expected Chad to be that good, to make me call it off with just a little appetizer. Where did that leave me, the sponsor? I had to establish authority. Once I decided I needed to put some discipline on my canary, I glared at Chad, who had just been sent off to tidy the furniture, and ordered viciously, "Why are you wearing so much at home? Take it off." Chad froze at once. He only had a t-shirt on top. If he took it off, he'd have nothing. His handsome brows and eyes filled with displeasure. He didn't say anything, but his face was full of resistance. I used my ultimate move. "Don't want to? Then give the money back." As expected, he clenched his jaw in hatred, put down what he was holding, and, under my smug gaze, took off his t-shirt with gritted teeth. Looking closely, I realized Chad's abs were actually gorgeous. Broad but not greasy, each block clearly defined, the line smooth, looking tight and powerful. Under my frank, naked, appraising stare, Chad's face flushed scarlet with fury. "Grace!" He shouted my name in anger, but there was nothing he could do. He could only turn into the bathroom, trying to hide. I followed him without hesitation. I watched, wide-eyed, as the water he splashed while washing his hands fell onto his bare chest and abs, quivering with the rise and fall of his breath. So tempting it was practically illegal. He was seducing me. I clicked my tongue. "Chad, come here and let me touch." He was instantly on guard. I didn't give him a chance to react, I threatened first. "If you don't want to, then ref you." He could only look at me with that aggrieved, humiliated gaze. Resigned, he closed his eyes again, turned back toward me with gritted teeth, and faced me. Satisfied, I nodded. The moment my fingers touched his chest, I felt his body give the slightest shiver. Bouncy. Springy. So nice to touch. Ignoring Chad's expression, I slid my hand lower and lower. The farther down I went, the redder Chad's face got. He was trembling all over with rage, and his breathing turned rapid. By the end, when I was kneading and still reaching farther down, he even let out a muffled groan. "Grace." I pressed a finger from my other hand to his lips. "Can you not keep calling your sponsor by her full name?" "Then what do I call you?" "Call me Master." Chad's face was about to turn purple with anger. In the end, Chad still didn't call me Master. But I didn't actually have a kink for that anyway, I was just teasing him. Bullying him like this already gave me more than enough satisfaction. I tried every trick I could think of for bullying someone, and used them all on Chad. By the time my best friend Katie came over, he had already resigned himself to his fate, was wearing an apron, and was cleaning like a house husband. Katie's eyes went round. She pulled me aside and whispered, "You're really making Chad serve you like this?" I was confused. "He's already bankrupt. What does he expect?" Katie looked tense. Even if he's bankrupt, someone like Chad would still have 10,000 ways to make a comeback. I thought her worry was unnecessary. Because she hadn't seen how Chad was humiliated by those people. If he really had a fallback plan, how would he have let himself end up like that? I was confident. No way. He's really, completely done this time. Seeing that Katie still didn't believe me, I simply craned my neck toward Chad, who wasn't far away. "Chad, come here. Tell Katie yourself, what are you to me right now?" Chad walked over obediently at first, but the moment he heard what I wanted, he suddenly looked up. Humiliation, resentment, all kinds of emotions surged across his face. I put my hands on my hips and glared. "What? You took the money and you're still embarrassed to admit it?" At the mention of money, he had no room to maneuver. He had to stand in front of me, lower his eyes, and in a hoarse, mortified voice, force the words out. "I'm your canary." Katie stared, jaw practically on the floor. I was triumphant. "Well? I didn't lie to you, did I? Do you want to feel for yourself to confirm?" Seeing me reach toward Chad again, she was horrified and stammered, and no need. Only after Chad turned back and quietly went to clean did she finally speak, mouth twitching. "Chad selling himself for money? I still find that really hard to believe, so, what do you make him do every day?" At that, I faltered. "He's just a male model now, what else can he do?" Katie glanced at Chad again. It was like she had to work very hard to convince herself, and only then did she sigh, "Fine. If Chad is really like this, then you really lucked out, you little brat, you're eating so well." It wasn't long after my best friend left that the news of Chad staying at my place spread everywhere. The group chat was tagging me like crazy. "Grace, are you out of your mind? You dare mess with Chad too? What did you do to him? Even if Chad went bankrupt, he wouldn't sell himself, right? Grace, actually, when I used to go to the bathroom with Chad I kinda took a peek, you'd better watch your health. +1, Chad is really, a man of many talents, everywhere. When I saw the last message, I couldn't help swallowing. I hadn't seen that part of Chad yet, was it really that exaggerated? I looked over at the bathroom, where my cute little Chad was washing my underwear very seriously. My mind couldn't help drifting. Chad must have felt my stare like needles on his back, so he turned around. "What exactly are you looking at?" Per my rule, he was wearing nothing but a pair of gray mid-length shorts. Sporty style, very much like a college athlete. And that color made the bulge between his legs very eye-catching. When he moved, it became even more obvious. It looked a pretty decent size. Chad finally realized where I was looking. Flushing with shame and anger, he used my underwear to cover downward. Grace. Being caught staring, I was actually a little embarrassed. But I recovered right away. Come on, I was his sponsor now. What couldn't I look at? And he even dared to cover it? I said, justly, "What are you yelling for? I'm paying to keep you, that thing is mine. Why can't I look? Not only will I look, I'm going to use it." Chad clearly hadn't expected me to speak that bluntly. He choked on his own breath, face reddening again. You. I strode forward aggressively. "What, me? Did I say anything wrong? If you're this guilty, don't tell me you're just good-looking but actually useless." If the product doesn't work, I'm returning it. After my little speech, Chad's face changed again and again. But when I finished the last word, he suddenly let out a cold laugh, like he'd made up his mind. As he walked toward me, he was already unbuckling his waistband. Fine. Whether I'm useful or not, you want to see, then take a good look. I didn't react at all. I could only stare as Chad undid his belt and strode over to me in 2 or 3 steps. My mind went blank. He yanked his pants down. And right then, someone started pounding on the door. In that instant, it felt like I'd grabbed a life-saving straw. I didn't dare so much as glance at Chad again. I turned, practically stumbling, and ran to open the door. Who is it? Coming. When I opened the door, a stylish, fashionably dressed beauty was standing outside, bristling with anger. Is Chad here? I recognized her right away. She was Melissa Kramer, the eldest daughter of the Kramer family. She and Chad used to seem pretty close. Because of what had just happened, my heart was pounding. I quickly took a step back and pointed in Chad's direction. He's here. Melissa shoved past me and ran in. At some point, Chad had already pulled his pants back on at lightning speed, and he'd even put on a shirt. He was still holding my little cute thing in his hand, though, and hadn't put it down. The moment Melissa saw what he was holding, her eyes turned red. How could you make brother Chad do something like this? I scratched my head. Honestly, I really hadn't made him wash that. He did it on his own. Chad didn't even look at us. He turned back into the bathroom and turned on the tap again to keep washing. Melissa's heart was breaking. She rushed forward and grabbed Chad. Brother Chad, don't degrade yourself like this. How much did she give you? I'll give you double. Just leave. My heart skipped a beat. I knew perfectly well that Melissa's family was richer than mine. If this turned into a bidding war, I might not be able to keep up. I hurried over to Chad's side and blinked up at him pitifully. I'd been so arrogant just now, and now I was as wilted as a salted fish. If I'd known, I would have been nicer to Chad, could have skipped watching him, too. What if he now thought I was poor and horny and decided to switch sponsors? But Chad gave me a glance, then spoke to Melissa in a flat voice. No need. In that instant, my whole world lit up. Oh my God. Chad, the great Chad. For a canary I had just brought home, he had such loyalty. Melissa was furious and anxious. What hold does she have over you? Tell me, whatever it is, I can help you. Chad kept working, voice steady. There's no hold or not. I took her money, so I have to honor it. Listening on the side, I was moved to the core. No wonder he was the man I wanted to eat. Too principled. I nodded again and again. Exactly. I've already paid him, so you should go. But the moment Melissa heard that, she felt even more distressed. She turned and glared at me. How much can you, with your little fortune, even give brother Chad? And you still want to humiliate him with money? How many days have you even booked him for? I'll take over your slot. I froze. It was my first time being a sponsor. I hadn't yet developed the good habit of paying up front and then inspecting the goods. Counting the money from the bar, I'd only thrown about 30,000 at Chad altogether. That was only enough for 3 days. Chad seemed to be reminded of that too. His eyes swept over me, and the corner of his mouth slowly curved. Right. I almost forgot. Miss Clark only booked me for 3 days. Tomorrow, I'm a free man. He stared straight at me. Isn't that right, Miss Clark? My internal alarms went off like crazy. Before I could say anything, Melissa had already let out a derisive snort and tossed out a card. Grace, you're so stingy. Here's 200,000, I'm taking brother Chad right now. I stiffened my neck. I don't agree. Even with renting an apartment there's priority to renew, why do you get to cut in? She sneered and flung out another card. 500,000. Who do you think I am? You think I'm that poor? 2 million. You don't have to keep adding. My family has money. I don't even look at that kind of money, okay? 5 million. That's enough, stop right there. 20 million. I went silent. 20 million? My monthly allowance was only 400,000. That was 4 years' worth. I was outmatched by rich people. Seeing me twitch at the mouth and unable to speak, Melissa smiled proudly. You see, brother Chad? She can't afford to keep you at all. I looked at Chad, and a wave of helplessness washed over me. If I kept him, I'd have to sacrifice a huge chunk of my allowance every month. If I sold him to Melissa, I wouldn't have to ask my family for money for 4 years. If I slept with Chad tonight and handed him over to Melissa tomorrow, that wouldn't really be a loss, would it? Chad's calm face seemed to crack little by little when he saw how torn I was. I tested the waters with Melissa. How about, you come tomorrow? Chad suddenly cut me off coldly. Enough. What do you two take me for? He looked at Melissa with a solemn expression. Miss Kramer, bidding like this on purpose, is that your way of insulting me? Yes, I went bankrupt, I fell. But I still have my own personhood, my own dignity. I'm not some piece of merchandise to be traded between the two of you at will. Then he looked at me. Since Miss Clark also only sees me as something to be traded, I'll leave tomorrow, earn money with my own hands, and stop degrading myself. When he finished, Chad turned in anger and locked himself in the bathroom. Melissa and I were left outside, staring at each other, not knowing what to do. We apologized, we coaxed, but he ignored us. Melissa talked to Chad through the door for a long time. In the end, she left in tears. I stared at the faint shadow behind the frosted glass and spoke in a low voice. Chad, I'm sorry, that's not what I meant. He snorted coldly. I kept explaining. I brought you home, I bought you so many things, of course I see you as mine. He finally let out his first real sentence in 2 hours, with a cold little laugh. When Melissa offered 20 million, can you swear you didn't want to sell me? I was speechless. Sobi. But that was 20 million. I wasn't as rich as she was. Wasn't I allowed to be tempted for just 1 second? Knowing I was in the wrong, I apologized softly. Chad, I'm sorry. Since you've already brought me home, you guarantee you won't be tempted even if someone offers you more next time. He suddenly said darkly, what if it's 100 million? I fell silent again. Why was he testing the cadre so hard? Chad's pride got poked again. His tone even carried a touch of desolation. Fine. I get it. I didn't know what else to say. I could only pace anxiously around the living room. On the 8th time I cried out, I'm so hungry, Chad. He finally came out with a cold face to make me dinner. Then he shut himself in the guest room again, absolutely determined to cut ties with me. Seeing that he wouldn't respond to either soft or hard tactics, I was out of options. Looked like he really was leaving tomorrow. So I decided to just let it all go. Chad, even if you're leaving tomorrow, don't forget that today you're still mine. If you're my canary for a day, you have to fulfill a canary's duties for that day. Inside the room, it was quiet for a while. Then a voice drifted out. What do you want? I didn't hesitate. I want to sleep with you. Before, because his mouth skills were too good, I hadn't even made it to actually eating him. Now that he was leaving, I had to make full use of the goods. 2 minutes later, the guest room door creaked open. Chad was wearing only that same pair of gray mid-length shorts. His bare upper body was all defined muscle, gleaming invitingly under the warm light. You sure? My gaze dropped. I couldn't help swallowing. Sure. Maybe it was because he was so set on leaving that he didn't argue with me this time. He just wanted to stand his last shift. Facts proved he was not only nice to look at, he was very nice to use. So nice I nearly cried. When I was limp all over and begging for mercy again and again, he kissed my ear, his deep, resonant voice wrapping around my eardrums. Didn't you say at least 7 times, master? My breathless gasps tangled with the warm press of his lips. I was done for all over again. The next morning when I woke up, there was no one beside me. I called for Chad a few times, no answer. Even though the house now had more of the daily necessities I'd bought for him, it still felt empty. Chad was gone. I finally accepted that. Last night, we'd been wrapped around each other, so close. And today he could leave without a backward glance. Sure, I was the one who'd first thought about selling him, but he didn't have to be so heartless, did he? Sobi. I paced the house a few times in frustration, then flopped onto the sofa in defeat. All I could think of was the way I bossed Chad around these past 2 days. His abs were so good to touch, and he was so capable, I'd actually made him angry enough to leave. Sigh. I let out a long breath, opened my phone, wanting to watch some barely safe for work videos to cheer myself up, and my best friend suddenly bombarded me with messages. OMG, Grace, look at this. What's going on? Didn't you keep Chad? How is he out doing deliveries again? And of all days, it's raining like crazy. The order even sent him to that rich kid neighborhood. Ugh, I feel so bad. I finally get why ancient scholars loved saving the fallen woman. I want to save him too. At the bottom was a video. In the video, at the gate of some upscale community, Chad was wearing a little kangaroo delivery helmet and a food delivery uniform. His pants had 2 rips in them. A few pampered rich young masters were circling around him, pointing and laughing. What do you mean there was an accident on the way? According to the platform, you were 13 minutes late. Young Master Gordon, why are you dawdling? Who are you trying to win sympathy from? Yeah, we won't report you if you kneel down and apologize to my bro right now. Well? Are you kneeling or not? Chad kept his head down meekly, apologizing again and again. He looked even more fragile and pitiable than the last time I'd seen him humiliated at the bar. I jumped to my feet at once. Damn it. They dared to bully my former canary like this? Uncle could bear it, Auntie could not. I asked, when was this? My bestie replied, like, just now. I recognized the background of the neighborhood right away, it was right next door to me. I grabbed my little shoulder bag and dashed out. When I arrived, they were still bullying him. In broad daylight. Was no one going to stop them? I shouted, "Stop." They all turned to look at me at once. I pulled a stack of cash out of my bag and threw it. "What are you yelling about? So what if he was 13 minutes late? Don't you know he's mine?" He had a little fight with me and went out to deliver food. "Since when is it your turn to bully him? Here's for your food and your tip. If you don't want to be trending news, take it and get lost." Those rich boys had been very dismissive at first. But when they saw me, their expressions changed. My dad's company might not be the biggest, but my mom's red aristocracy background was absolutely the toughest. Almost no one in our circle dared to really cross me. They muttered to each other, glared at me resentfully, and left. Chad was still standing there with that calm, upright look, like a small white poplar in a storm. I gently wiped the dirt off his face. "Chad, look at you. Isn't it nicer to come home with me? Out here you're getting bullied like this." He pressed his lips together and refused to speak. Only then did I see that the edges of the rips in his pants had thin streaks of blood. Seeing he might be hurt inside, I reached out to touch, and Chad sucked in a sharp breath from the pain. I jumped. "Does it hurt a lot?" He nodded on instinct, then shook his head, sniffing. "Do you even care?" I explained, "Of course I care. I rushed out here to save you, doesn't that show my sincerity? Let me see, tell me if it's serious." He still resisted my touch, stubbornly lifting his chin. "Aren't I just a little toy to you? If I'm broken, you can just replace me. What's there to look at?" His expression was cold when he spoke, but his tone had a hint of a choke in it. Just like a proud kid who'd been abandoned. I hurried to say, "No, that's not it. I said I'd keep you, so I'll be responsible for you. Don't deliver anymore, come home with me, okay?" Chad bit his lip and looked at me. His eyes slowly filled with grievance. "If I go home with you, won't you just sell me again when someone offers a better price?" So he really was hung up on that. A man who had just gone through bankruptcy was probably most afraid of betrayal. I felt even worse for him. "Trust me, even if someone offers me 10 billion, I will never sell you." "Really? Really?" Chad followed me back, still sulky. Then I remembered and quickly turned to remind him. "Oh, right, Chad. Even though I was the one who went to get you back, you're still my canary. Your duties don't change." Clearly I was the sponsor here, but the more I said, the guiltier I felt. Chad just looked at me quietly, then nodded. "Okay." He agreed so obediently. I was a little dazed, so I added in a small voice, "Then, at home, take your shirt off first." Chad stared, stunned. Then he caught on and glared at me, cheeks puffed with anger. But he still silently took off his shirt. "Like this?" "Perfect, perfect." I nodded quickly. "Oh, and your pants." I was just about to remind him to change his pants when I saw Chad had already leaned half back on the sofa, smoothly taken off his delivery pants, and slipped on that same pair of gray mid-length shorts. Hearing me speak, he even tilted his head. "What?" My mind flashed back to that bulging sight I'd seen just now. Then to some other memories, my face went a little hot. I stammered, "No, nothing. I'll go get the first aid kit." I hadn't realized, but Chad's tolerance for pain was pretty low. He had 2 scrapes on his knee from falling off the e-bike. Every time I so much as touched them with medicine, he'd hiss. I had no choice but to dab the medicine on and then gently blow on it. Only then did he stop yelping. As I put away the kit, I couldn't help saying, "Seriously, which one of us is the canary here?" He was speechless. "I'm the one working at home with no shirt on, aren't I?" I had no comeback. Fair enough. Not wrong. After that, Chad really never wore a shirt at home again. Every day he walked around bare-chested in front of me, showing off those rock-solid 8-pack abs. He let me touch him, let me sleep with him. He worked diligently. Sometimes he'd get so mad at my requests that his face would flush and his whole body would tremble. But he still couldn't do anything about it, he just bore it quietly. Watching his face go red like that made me so happy. But the days of living like a fairy didn't last long, because my dad suddenly stormed in. Because the news that I was keeping Chad had completely spread through our circle. Some rich young ladies were jealous that I struck first. But more of them were the people Chad had offended back when he dominated the business world. His methods had always been ruthless, and he was swift and decisive. He'd once covered the sky with one hand and no one dared say anything, but the moment he fell, all those people he'd once crossed couldn't sit still anymore. By keeping Chad, I was not only easing his debt pressure, I was also shielding him from a lot of malice. But precisely because of that, I also invisibly became the target of those people's hatred. And in business, there are always a lot of tricks. My dad got hit hard right away. He clutched his chest. "Grace, how about, we stop keeping him, okay?" I looked at that blood-red stock line on our family screen and was shocked. And also really torn. After all, I had just promised Chad not long ago that if I kept him, I would take responsibility for him. Who would have thought something like this would happen? My dad showed me the company situation. Almost every employee was on edge, steeped in this constant anxiety that they might be laid off the next second. Some of them were uncles and aunties who had watched me grow up. There were so many more white hairs. I felt a bit guilty. Because of my own selfish desires, I had dragged down so many people. I couldn't just ignore my family. But I also didn't know how to tell Chad. Chad still didn't know anything. As usual, he was walking in and out of the dining room shirtless. 3 dishes and a soup, all my favorites. On a normal day, with food this much to my taste, I'd at least reward Chad with a grab of those pecs. But today I only ate a few distracted bites and went back to the bedroom. I lay under the covers in a daze for a long time, and then a shadow came into the room. The mattress behind me dipped a little, and that familiar woody scent drifted over. For a long moment, I didn't move at all. Chad's low voice sounded. "What's wrong today? You're not in the mood." I hadn't figured out how to say it, so I could only brush it off. "My period is coming. I don't feel good." He sounded a little confused. "Isn't it still a week away?" I didn't answer. He probably realized I was in a bad mood, so he quietly lifted the covers and left. A few minutes later, Chad came back again with a cup of brown sugar ginger tea. He coaxed me into drinking 2 sips, then came back onto the bed. 2 warm hands rested on my lower belly. "Want me to rub it for you?" I wanted to refuse, but I was afraid he'd overthink it, so I just let him. His palms circled lightly over my stomach in a steady rhythm, and the warmth in his skin seemed to seep right through my thin pajamas into my body. In no time, I felt a lot better. "Chad. What is it?" "I just wanted to call you." Okay. I'm here." A few days later, my dad still hadn't found a way to break the siege. Watching the stock stay stubbornly red day after day, I couldn't stall anymore. Outside the room, I practiced several times how to tell Chad I couldn't keep him anymore. I took a deep breath and pushed open the bedroom door. Chad was sitting at the computer with his back to me. The screen was on a web search page. I walked over to see clearly. At the top, in big bold letters, Canary Survival Guide, How to Keep Your Sponsor's Heart. Just as I was about to laugh, Chad quickly closed the web page and turned to look at me. "What's wrong?" I pointed at the computer. You were just looking at. You saw it?" He froze. I was hesitating whether to admit I'd seen it. He suddenly sighed. "I can't help it. You've been less and less interested in me lately. No touching, no hugging, no sleeping. I feel like I'm about to get laid off." The more he said, the quieter he got, and by the end, there was even a little grievance in it. "Did you find someone more suitable outside?" I was stunned. Well, I hadn't found anyone else, but he really did seem about to get laid off. How was I supposed to say that? And all my hesitation and wavering were seen right through by Chad. He lowered his eyes. "So that's how it is? I guess I was right not to believe you when you said you'd never abandon me. After all, people like new things. I get it. It's just, because of what happened with the delivery platform last time, I don't know if I can still go back to that smoothly." He pursed his lips, eyes still burning with that stubborn, unbending look. "It's fine. I'll figure something out on my own." Seeing him so proud made guilt surge through me. I threw my arms around him, sobbing. "Chad, I'm sorry." The moment I said I was sorry, his whole body went stiff. The atmosphere around us suddenly went cold. "I really can't keep you anymore. Because I kept you, my dad's company got targeted and it's about to go under. I really like you, but I can't just ignore my family." The air didn't feel cold anymore. Chad asked, "What?" I wiped my tears. I said, "I can't ignore my family." The sentence before that. "My dad's company got targeted and it's about to go under." The sentence after that one. "Huh? Which one do you mean?" "The one where you said you like me." "Oh. I said I really like you, and then?" He seemed to chuckle softly. He gently wrapped his arms around me. "That's enough." Chad still needed time to find a new place, so he couldn't move out of my house that same day. But since we'd said everything, I didn't have that knot in my heart anymore. I just grabbed every minute before I sent him away and squeezed him dry. After all, after this, I wouldn't be able to cling to him like this anymore. Chad seemed to read my mind too, and he worked harder and harder. He worked so hard I felt like I couldn't live without him. I told my dad I needed a couple more days, and he said he understood. But strangely, after that day, my family's stock started to turn back to green. I was puzzled. I hadn't even told anyone yet that I was going to stop keeping Chad. How was it working so fast? And the weird stuff kept happening. Those companies that had banded together to go after my family got exposed one after another, tax issues, product issues, all kinds of issues. All of a sudden, they were too busy with their own messes. They had no time at all to target us. My dad called me, laughing like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha, see? That's what you call evil meets punishment, evil meets punishment. Ha 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 ha. I probed, so does that mean I can keep on? My dad's laughter stopped instantly. But Grace, once they finish dealing with these things and get back on their feet, will still be targeted. I answered gloomily. Okay. When I turned back, Chad was still obediently mopping the floor. I touched his abs sadly. In a couple of days I won't get to touch this anymore. Let me touch more. He nodded obediently. Okay. 2 days later. Those few companies that had been targeting us successively announced bankruptcy. My dad was dumbfounded. How could something like this happen? Those forces weren't small, how could they just collapse like that? I said, I don't know this stuff. How should I know? In my heart I was thrilled that I could keep fooling around with Chad. I fobbed him off with a couple of lines and hurried back to my room. But just as I was about to open the door, I heard someone talking inside. Ever since Chad went bankrupt, apart from people mocking him, no one had called him of their own accord. Who was he talking to? Curious, I pressed my ear to the door. Just in time to hear Chad's lazy voice. So what if you didn't go bankrupt? Whoever dares talk nonsense in front of her can wait to be ruined. In that instant, my brain stopped working. Didn't go bankrupt? Who didn't go bankrupt? Chad. That Chad who I rode and played with every day? I was so shocked that even when I heard footsteps inside, I still didn't react. I just stood there stupidly at the door and made eye contact with Chad as he opened it. I was petrified. He looked a little awkward. You finished talking to your family so fast? I stammered, why yeah, I did. He sensed something was off. Did you hear something? I denied it desperately. No, I didn't hear anything at all. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Then why are you so nervous? I turned to run. I'm just so happy that I need to go to the bathroom. But I didn't even get half a step away. Chad grabbed my wrist and pulled me back. He wrapped me in his arms and chuckled. Grace. Do you know that little habit you have of touching your ear whenever you lie? It's very obvious. My vision went black. I was doomed. This way of talking, he really hadn't gone bankrupt. The moment I thought about everything I'd done to him these days, I wanted to dig a hole and bury myself. You, let me go. Instead, he tightened the grip around my waist. What's wrong? Last night, you were the one who told me not to go out. The moment he brought up last night, I collapsed and covered my face. Don't say it. You weren't bankrupt and you still became my canary, how can you be this perverted? He lowered his head and lightly bit my earlobe. Grace. Between the one who insisted on keeping me and the one who just went along with it, who's more perverted? I slapped my hand over his mouth. That was me being kind, being merciful, I didn't want to see my archenemy wandering outside suffering. He'd basically just been slapped by me, but he wasn't angry at all. Instead, he stuck out his tongue and slowly licked my palm. Warm and wet. I jolted like I'd been electrocuted, every hair on my body standing up. Chad smiled, dark and wicked. There are a lot of ways not to let me suffer. Why did Grace pick this one? I was about to lose it. But I still struggled to resist. Because I wanted to torment you, to humiliate you. He only gave a lazy Grace, sure this was humiliation. Not a reward. I suddenly recalled how, when I was bullying Chad before, his face had gone bright red, his ears scarlet, his body trembling, so that wasn't from anger. My scalp prickled in waves. Chad, how can you be this perverted? He dropped another kiss on the back of my neck. Does Grace not like it? His tongue deliberately circled over my sensitive spot, and my legs went weak, I almost couldn't stand. A little lower and I couldn't take it at all. I just melted against Chad like I didn't have any bones. Chad, stop. But he was very satisfied. He scooped me up in a princess carry. Grace. How can we stop doing something like this, just because you say stop? Chad had shown his cards and dropped the act. He no longer cared about my sponsored dignity. He wouldn't listen when I said no. He wasn't even pretending anymore. The next day I couldn't even get out of bed. I curled up under the covers in anger and refused to show my face. Until Chad brought steaming, fragrant breakfast to the bedside. I stuck my head out and scolded him. Using food to seduce people, you really are awful. He was unhurried. Grace is cute even when she's scolding. My cheeks flushed. Enough, shut up. You fake bankruptcy liar. He looked completely unruffled. I didn't mean to lie to you. I rolled my eyes. Oh really? Since you weren't bankrupt, don't tell me you didn't have the means to handle the people bullying you. He blinked. That, I did have. I raised a hand to smack him, and only then did he go on. Pretending to go bankrupt was to draw them all out. I froze. What do you mean? Chad sighed and patiently explained. It turned out that some time ago he'd noticed there was a mole in his company. Because he'd been so dominant in the circle, there'd always been a lot of people with different agendas, and even more people who acted all respectful to his face but were undercutting him behind his back. So Chad simply used the situation against them and went bankrupt. He wanted to lure out everyone who was disloyal in one go. And also take the chance to see which people around him were truly sincere. Who knew the first one to jump out was me, the big hungry little brat. I felt really embarrassed and tried to drag him down with me. What about you, huh? Didn't you also fail to resist the temptation? I said I wanted to keep you and you just followed me. Chad nodded calmly. Yeah. Otherwise? I was stunned. Otherwise what? He raised a brow. I like you, so I wanted to go with you. Is that not allowed? I was even more stunned. I could barely get words out. You, what did you say? Chad lowered his head and kissed my forehead. I said, I like you. Grace, I liked you a long time ago. Chad said he liked me. He said he'd always acted cold because back then I'd reposted some QQ space expand your friend list nonsense. Back when I was young and cringy, under ideal partner, I'd written in big bold words, cold, top student, school heartthrob. Chad had taken it to heart. On one side, he studied like crazy to keep up a top student persona, and on the other, he ignored everyone to keep up a cold persona. But later, when he saw that my eyes on him had suddenly gained some teeth gritting in them, he wondered if something had gone wrong somewhere. I burst out laughing. Is that for real? He nodded gloomily. Why would I lie to you? I stayed rigorously suspicious. Then why did you walk out on your own before? I couldn't even stop you. He sighed. Because back then even I wasn't sure how you felt about me. If you really did sell me to someone else, I'd have nowhere to complain. Okay. Then why did you go do delivery? He spread his hands. Just plain old playing pitiful to see if I could get your attention. Me? Damn. When I told my best friend about it, she wasn't surprised at all. She just looked at me like I was an idiot. I already guessed it. I just didn't dare say it. Only you would believe that Chad would casually sell his body to a woman. I was stunned by her. Ugh. That really did make me look dumb. So I dumped all my anger on Chad. He didn't get angry or impatient, he just kept that faint curve at the corner of his lips, watching me gnaw on his abs. Later, I brought Chad home. My dad was so moved he almost cried. Actually, I've always wanted to ask about some company management secrets. Not being able to build the company into a top-tier one had always been his sore spot. Chad didn't hold back at all and explained his methods in detail. My dad, excited, clapped him on the shoulder to make him his sworn brother. Chad was so startled he waved both hands. Uncle, no, I can't. If I become your brother, wouldn't that mess up the seniority between me and Grace? My dad looked at Chad, then at me, and sighed. Fine. On the way back, Chad kept asking for credit. He said he'd won over his father-in-law so easily, he deserved a reward. I was so annoyed by his smug face that I smacked his abs. Is that enough of a reward? But my hand got caught. A tall figure leaned over, and then came a rainstorm of kisses. No. This is enough. My head was kissed so dizzy I pushed at his chest. Chad, stop. Chad licked his lips, insatiable. Grace, I still like it best when you say you want to keep me. I huffed. I can't afford to keep you. How could that be? I'm easy to keep. Oh? How easy? 3 times a day is enough. Chad, you're a pervert. I thought I was the one keeping him. But in the end, it was Chad, his quiet loyalty, his teasing smiles, that kept me. Turns out, the real fool wasn't the man pretending to be bankrupt. It was the woman who thought love could be measured in cash.